Have you noticed how the new smartphones that come out every year are presenting fewer and fewer reasons to upgrade? This is a graph of smartphone innovation, not scientific in any way. And we are here. I'm using Samsung Galaxy S phones as examples here for brevity, but the point still stands for different manufacturers too. We're at the tail end of this innovation S-curve, and it's making continually less sense to upgrade your smartphone. But why is that? Well, in years gone by, there were big reasons to upgrade every year. We went from 3G to 4G and then to 5G. The battery life and performance, we were seeing major year-on-year gains. When USB-C came out and you wanted the new connection, faster Bluetooth, faster Wi-Fi, fresh new designs and premium build materials for the first time. And of course, how could we forget the huge leap in camera technology from 2010 to 2020? Just a staggering amount of progress. But since we're at a bit of a plateau in this hardware innovation, yearly upgrades make far less sense, even if phone makers are still scrambling to find new ways to entice us to browse their store and pre-order the latest and greatest smartphones. The most egregious example, in my opinion, is the iPhone 16 Pro Max. I mean, Apple tried so hard to make its new devices look enticing that it came up with a poorly thought out, poorly executed button just to slap on the side of the phone. Because other than that, the iPhone 16 series is painfully similar to its predecessor. For 99.9% of people, it's just simply not worth the switch, especially given Apple's upcoming AI is coming to last year's 15 Pros. I'm sure it will still sell or have already sold millions of units because the US for some reason loves Apple, but when one of the great innovators is stretching to make its phones look like upgrades, you know the situation has got pretty bad. Camera control was a panic move to get people to upgrade. Contrast that to the two biggest upgrades in Apple's recent history, the iPhone 5S to the 6 and the 6 Plus, and then the iPhone 7 to the 10, and it's clear to see just how much progress has slowed down. Samsung isn't immune to criticism either. The Galaxy S through the S10 made some mega progress. Not only to its hardware, which is obvious, but the TouchWiz to One UI redemption arc might be one of the biggest turnarounds in tech history. I'd argue the Galaxy S20 Ultra was where Samsung found its magic, and then after that, the biggest change was really renaming the Note to the Galaxy S Ultra. I know I've spoken about this on the channel before, but one of the strangest things about the S24 Ultra is how its long-range lens actually got downgraded from the previous generation. It's kind of wacky. It's not just a plateau, that seems like a backward step. Performance is a tricky one for Qualcomm and Apple because their chips have been so fast for so long that pretty much every phone with their hardware is still fast 2, 3 or 4 years later. Adding to that might not actually make a noticeable difference for the user, and then they run into diminishing returns. If they had a couple of years instead of every 1 year, there might be more of a chance that we'd be able to feel the difference. It does raise the question, is this stagnation happening because of the aforementioned development challenges, given how mature the technology has become? Is it because companies are min-maxing to try and make the most amount of money without investing? Or is it simply because the average smartphone has become so good that we as consumers probably wouldn't notice huge upgrades? Google really didn't talk about its Tensor GeForce performance bump because there wasn't a substantial increase. It hasn't got close to even last year's Snapdragon chip, let alone this year's. In fact, the main upgrades on this year's Pixel were the flat sides, the new size, and the new display. Of course, there are a few AI features in there for those who do want that, but a lot of the Pixel 9 Pro XL's benefits can be found in last year's Pixel 8 Pro. And this yearly flagship upgrade is especially hard to justify given just how insane smartphone pricing has become. $1,000 is basically the mark at which the biggest companies in the West are willing to place their flagships. And when progression isn't where we all want it, it's a very tough sell. AI has been the flavor of the month thing that companies across the globe are leaning on to try and sell their products. And it's not limited to just smartphones. And to be totally honest, it seems like a bubble from an outsider's perspective, just like blockchain and NFTs. Remember those? But looking at any of the marketing for these high-end smartphones in 2024, AI is at the forefront of it, which is great if you are big into your AI or you fancy those features, but not only are a lot of these pretty gimmicky, but a good chunk have already been given to models a generation or two behind, which further weakens the pull of buying the latest one every year. Not to mention that you can download AI apps like ChatGPT, Gemini, and Photos with Magic Editor on phones that are 7, 8, 9 years old at this point. It's not exclusive to even phones that are a couple of generations old. So, what is the solution to this? Well, the loud rumour that Apple could be ditching its yearly upgrade cycle on some of its products would make sense from a consumer's perspective, but not from these big companies that are looking to make as much money as possible. And I only mention Apple as it seems to be that company that does the thing and everyone else seems to follow, a headphone port, charger in the box, etc, etc. But as far as how true that rumour is likely to be, well, again, it doesn't make much sense if there's money to be made, and so in my opinion, we will continue to see the yearly upgrades year on year because people are still buying them. We've come to a point now where it's hard to buy a truly bad mid-range to high-end smartphone. Samsung, Apple, Google, OnePlus, Oppo, Xiaomi, Honor, they all make good smartphones, and with how fast SoCs have become, how much storage we get on our smartphones these days from factory, and with how complex and impressive smartphone photography has become, it was always going to be harder to improve on that, and the law of diminishing returns has absolutely reared its ugly head. But the other side of the coin is that companies are offering 6 or 7 years of software support. These impressive and very useful smartphones can now last a lot longer before running into issues, be that compatibility, battery related, performance. Phones have happened to stagnate at a really good time, where if the average person wants to buy a phone today, they are highly unlikely to run into FOMO the next year, or even 2 years down the line, and that's great from a money saving standpoint. So you sort of have to look at it like this. It's not necessarily about the yearly upgrade from a consumer point of view, say going from the S23 Ultra to the S24 Ultra, but about the leapfrog and overlap. So someone might buy the S20 and someone might buy the S21. And if both upgrade every 2 years, Samsung is still selling the new phone every year, but just to a different customer. And considering literal billions of people buy smartphones at one point in their lives, it makes a lot of sense to continue as is. How often do you upgrade? Before this job where I had access to far more products, I was upgrading every 2 to 3 years and actually often bought last year's model on eBay for a discounted rate. I know very, very few people in my life that actually buy the latest smartphone every year. It's just not worth it. But I'm really intrigued to hear what your upgrade patterns are. And while you're down in the comments, feel free to hit like if you enjoyed today's content and subscribe to never miss another upload. I've been Ryan Thomas, and I'll catch you later. Cheers.